So before I start, let me tell you a little bit about the clinic that I'm the medical director of. We have about 10 practitioners that come from a wide range of disciplines: chiropractic, acupuncture, naturopathic, massage, counseling. And what we do is we pool our talents to be able to solve problems. And that's what we're in the business of. We're in the business of solving problems. We're good at figuring out what's going on with people. We're good at treating the cause of whatever it is. We're good at helping people to live the cure. And my niche in the clinic is figuring things out. That's what I do. So I basically take care of people who no one else can figure out. I have a knack for it. I run lots and lots of labs and ask lots of questions. And today we're going to talk about memory because it is an important problem. This is something that the problems with memory are growing as our population ages. They're growing for a variety of reasons. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by talking about how memory works. Then I'm going to talk about what we can do to fix it. So we'll start off with the big picture. Now, I'm going to talk like this is the gospel truth, but the fact of the matter is we're talking about the brain. So the fact is we really don't know how things work. There's lots and lots of stuff that we really just don't know. Medical science is at the point now that they haven't figured it all out. But on the other hand, we do know quite a bit, and we know enough to be able to intervene and solve problems. So let's talk about how memory works to begin with. So it starts off, first of all memory is thought to be stored in dendritic patterns. And what we have here is an axon, or rather neuron with an axon, and then we have these axon terminals and these dendrites. And these bits attached to these bits, attached to those bits, and those bits, and those bits, and the different combinations of the way the neurons interact and form these patterns is really thought to be how memory is stored. And since there are so many neurons and there are so many ways that they can interconnect, that there's 1,000 trillion different dendrite connections. That's quite a bit. That's plenty to store whatever information we need. Now, memory is divided into 3 basic categories. One is sensory, one is short-term, and one is long-term. And we'll go ahead and talk about what those mechanisms are right now in terms of what they are. So the first one, we got a brain here. So let's take a look at the first one. First one, we'll just do a little neuroanatomy. Prefrontal cortex is really important for memory because that's where short-term memory gets converted into long-term memory. And we know this because if you cut that part of the brain out, people can't convert short-term memory to long-term memory. There are people who've had injuries or had operations where that was removed and they literally cannot take their short-term memories and transfer it into long-term. Now they can learn, they can do a variety of things. There's ways they've been tested backwards and forwards to figure out exactly how this works. But the bottom line is they don't make long-term memories. Their long-term memories that they had from the past are intact. They can remember 2nd grade, but they can't remember what they did earlier that day. Okay, so, and now I just said this, damage to prefrontal cortex causes short-term memory defects. It's dependent on acetylcholine. This is very important. Acetylcholine turns out to be key in the transfer of short-term memory into long-term memory. It's one of the things that we can fix. That's why we like this one. Okay, so we have the hippocampus right here. This is another key area for memory. It's really kind of a sorting station. It's where the short-term memory information is transferred into long-term. It's also important for spatial awareness. So it's where we feel our coordination. So it's interesting that there's a wiring connection between our physicality and where we are in space and memory. And you know, and if you think about it for a moment, it makes sense because for the vast majority of human history, we lived outside in the bushes. And it was important for us to know where stuff was in space. So our memory is closely tied to our awareness of the space around us. It's only in modern times we spend so much time in a computer screen and a flat surface, and yet our memory works in space. And we'll see this too as we're trying to help people recover their memories. A lot of times movement is one of the strongest tools we have of bringing memory back. Oh, and it's also the hippocampus is particularly sensitive to stress. And I'll talk about this more as we go along. We're discussing where memory goes bad and what can be done to fix it. But stress is a key element. Okay, and another interesting thing about the hippocampus is the cells in the hippocampus are easily lost. There's this trimming back mechanism that streamlines our memory, that brings the important memories into sharper focus and loses the unimportant memories. So as we grow older, unless we practice kind of useless old information, we tend to lose it as the cells that inhabit the hippocampus are trimmed back and die. And the rate of death is about 5% per decade.
Beginning when?
Oh, throughout your life. Honestly, throughout your life. Yeah, and in fact, the cutting back period happens particularly intensely in infants because they have way too many cells, and as they're forming those connections and learning and building memories, the extra cells, the peripheral cells, are cut back. So it's a normal thing. So there's nothing broken with it. Of course, I can't remember my second grade teacher's name anymore. At one point I had it down, right? Not anymore. That information's gone. Okay, and then, it can actually gain cells with physical and mental activity. This was not known until recently. This was actually discovered, and it's clever as heck. Now, I got to apologize. To start off with an apology here, which is so many of these little details that I just bump over would be worthy of an hour-long lecture in and of themselves. And I just have to apologize. So many times, I'm just going to have to bump over stuff like this little gem here. Okay, so now we're going to talk about sensory memory. And sensory memory is memory that's it's momentary recordings of information from our sensory systems. So our eyes, our ears, our nose, our touch, our smell bring in information constantly. Now, when I was a kid, I assumed the way memory worked was I had this tape recorder in my head that simply tape recorded everything that ever happened to me. And if I was more clever, I could simply go back to the tape recorder and play it back again. And I could tell you exactly what I was having for breakfast in the morning of October 7th, 1972. But no, alas, it does not work that way. How it actually works is tons of information floods into our brain, and the vast majority of it is instantly, well, nearly instantly, within a half second or 2 or 3 or maybe 4, purged, simply lost. It comes in, if it's not attended to, if it doesn't have an emotional tone associated with it, if there isn't some good and compelling reason to hold on to this information, it is lost. Lost forever, never to be seen again. Okay, so touch memory is the most fleeting, lasts about a half a second. Visual lasts a little longer, almost a second. Auditory lasts longest, 4 seconds. And the deepest is smell memory. And it's not understood why, but the fact of the matter is, in terms of the neuroanatomy, it's closest to the hippocampus. So there may be some special connection with smell, but we do know that you'll get the richest and deepest memory reverie based on smells than you will anything else. Okay, short-term memory. Short-term memory lasts 20 to 30 seconds. So what has to happen, I'll have a slide here that summarizes all this, but I'll just wave my hands on this one. Anyways, what happens is the sensory memory, if it's deemed important enough, gets shunted over into short-term memory, which is in the prefrontal cortex. And it kind of sits there and spins. It idles. So that we can use that information to do a task, so we can be aware of what's around our area. We can remember where we put something. It doesn't go into long-term memory, but it's right there in front of us. And there's a certain number of slots that are available. And in terms of the literature, it's universally recognized that there are 7 slots. There's 7 numbers in a phone number and so on and so forth. I want to tell you that's actually not how it works. There is not 7 slots. Some people can remember 10 things in short-term memory, but the majority of us, I'm sorry to say, can only remember 4 or 5. They generated this research out of college students. They were bright, they were practiced, they were remembering stuff all the time. That's where they got these things. General population is not so good. Okay, dependent on prefrontal cortex, sorry, I already said that. Important items are moved into long-term memory. Yeah, that's interesting. We do know the switching stations in the hippocampus. We don't really understand exactly why some memories are moved over into long-term and some aren't. It's funny, it seems to be capricious. There's memories I have of sitting at the kitchen table at my grandma's house, and there's a smell in the air of mesta, which is this thing, I won't tell you the whole story. Anyways, there's this, whatever, you know what I'm going with this one, this random memory that just pops up. It's popped up in my head right now as I'm telling to you. And I don't know why, nothing was happening. There was no stress, there was nothing important, nothing. It just comes to mind for whatever reason. Okay, long-term memory. I'm surprised that somebody's not commenting on my pictures. I put a lot of time into picking these clever pictures here. You recognize the one previous, right? Yeah, okay, good. All right, so dependent on neuron dendrite patterns stored in the neocortex, yeah, we talked about that already. Works best when it's related to information that you already know. So if you have a context for the memory, chances are it's going to go into long-term memory is much better. You know, it's interesting, if you don't have a context, a lot of times you not only do you not remember it, you see it, but it doesn't get turned into memory. Like the classic example is the Indians on the East Coast, when the Europeans first sailed in their ships, they didn't see the ships. They had no context for it. So they see it with their eyes, but it wouldn't sink into their heads. They had to be pointed out. Works best with practice and emotional intensity. We'll come back to that in terms of how to make memory work better. Dependent on adequate acetylcholine levels in the brain. Okay, now this is a great slide here. This kind of reviews everything we've talked about so far. We have some kind of environmental stimuli, you know, the feeling of the chair under your rear, that kind of thing, the temperature of the air, whatever. A bunch of stuff we don't normally attend to, but it's all around us. The sound of my voice, hopefully you're tending to that part, right? So anyway, so the sensory memory comes into the touch store, the hearing store, the vision store, so on and so forth. The vast majority of information that comes into this particular part of your brain is simply purged. Some of it, though, goes on into short-term memory. In short-term memory, some of it's rehearsed. It actually goes around and round and round. If there's something you need to know in particular, you'll practice it in your mind. Most of the time this is done unconsciously, but it's rehearsed. Some of that goes on to long-term memory. The vast majority of that is purged. We actually retain very little of what happens to us. Okay, effects of age on memory. You could well imagine this isn't going to be good news here. Okay, the dendrite pattern breakdown. You get neuronal death. So if something comes along and kills a neuron, well, the dendrite's not going to really last any longer than the neuron, right? So that link in the chain is broken. And if that memory is dependent on that particular neuron, then that memory has been lost. Now the good news is important memories are not dependent on a single neuron. They're dependent on wide-ranging patterns of neuronal interconnections. So you could lose a neuron or two and it's compensated for by the other neurons. Well, things that damage neurons: toxins, drugs, oxidative damage, blood sugars being too high, inflammation, all kinds of stuff. There can be a failure of transfer of short-term memory to long-term memory with age. That whole mechanism, since it is a mechanism, can go awry, doesn't happen correctly. And one of the things that can facilitate that is lower brain acetylcholine levels. So anybody know what their acetylcholine levels are? Who? Nobody. How would you ever know that, right? That's something that's never tested, yet it turns out to be vital, absolutely vital for your memory working right. So the most important thing that you can do to get your memory working right is get acetylcholine levels up. Hippocampal damage. Of course, brain damage, tumors, the wear and tear that comes from those things, but stress in particular is damaging the hippocampus. I talk about this so many times, I don't know at what point I'm going to dive deep. Let's hold off on the deep dive for a little bit here. I got another slide coming up. Okay, brain toxins. I love this slide. Take a look at this slide and then mentally count the number that you have been exposed to. 5? 7? 9. A lot, no doubt. Lots and lots. Mine is alcohol, aspirin, and DEET. Of course DEET. Come on, who lives in Alaska doesn't get exposed to DEET? Mercury, If you have a filling in your mouth, you get exposure to mercury. Cadmium is common, and on, all kinds of stuff. And healthy stuff that so many people are on. Glucophage, that's to help people with diabetes, right? Lasix, that's to help the kidneys as a diuretic to lose fluid, and so on and so forth, all kinds of stuff. Now, of course, not all of these are deadly toxins. They're mild toxins. They're mild toxins. Not all of them. Some are deadly toxins. Cadmium is actually a deadly toxin. But they're mostly mild toxins that just kind of wear and tear. You lose a neuron or two now and again, here and there, and it adds up. And heaven forbid you go down to Mexico and you have a few too many and you go on a bender and then you're coming back and you're like, what happened? I can't remember. Yeah, no doubt. Okay, stress and memory. Now, when I put this slide together, I had this horrid picture of an angry bear, and I thought, I don't want to look at that. So I made a nice picture of a bear. But this is to symbolize you're going down the trail and, oh, there's a bear. How exciting, right? Your body starts making stress chemicals. The key one here is cortisol. Cortisol is a stress chemical. Basically what it does is it takes your blood and shunts it from your digestive system to your heart, to your muscles, and to your brain. So you can run or fight, duck and dodge, whatever. Your attention goes up with these as well. Now, it's a bunch of other stuff happens as well. Catecholamines go up, a bunch of things. But cortisol, for our purposes, is a key player because it affects your memory. Now, what it does, that's in terms of both bad and good, is it causes neuronal death in the hippocampus. We know this. We've done lots and lots of studies that show that if you dump cortisol into people's brains, the cells that live in the hippocampus, which are central to memory, to particularly transferring short-term memories into long-term memories, are dying. You may wonder, why? What could possibly be the reason for that? And it turns out to be straightforward and common sense. When you're in a stressful situation like this, you don't want to remember your second grade teacher's name. It's of no use. What you want to remember is where that tree was so you can go run and climb it. Right? You want to remember how to survive. So what your brain does is it takes the important information that has an intense emotional connection on it, like, I'm going to die. That connection isn't hardly a more intense emotional connection than that. And it locks it into your brain deeply and strongly. That's what this is. Anything that's superfluous is cut out. So this is useful. This is helpful. This is really something that our brains do for good reason. Except if we live in stress. Now it's counterproductive. Now you're cutting back, and you can't remember the names of your kids. So stress can be definitely a problem. Okay, strengthens fear-based memories. That's the main reason this is doing this. PTSD. Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. That's the classic one right there. So that memory of you hunkering down and have bullets going over your head and your buddy got killed, that memory is locked in intensely. And the other little superfluous stuff, like what you ate for breakfast that morning, forget it, it's all gone. It's just purged from your brain as useless information. All right, so we've kind of set the stage here for talking about how to fix memory. So let's start doing that. Okay, common sense. I mean, I could stop this thing and I could ask you all to tell me what are the things to do, and you'll be able to say, we want to make sure that the neurons are healthy. We want to avoid toxins, right? We want to do what we can to moderate the effects of stress. We want to try to bring up acetylcholine levels, right? And that's exactly what this list is. Promote acetylcholine, promote brain blood circulation. In fact, let's hold on a second. I can't just bounce through this list so quick. I got to stop and linger every once in a while. This is going to be our linger time. So let's do the promote neuron dendrite health. Okay, how do you do that? How do you keep your brain neurons healthy? Hands, somebody. Oh, wait, raise your hand because I want to. Yeah, yes, in a limited way. There's a much better way, a much more effective way. Anybody else give it a go? Go ahead. Yeah, that's good. You're getting closer yet. Closer yet. There's even a better way to say it. Wait, you had your turn. One more. Yeah. Basically, you guys are getting close to the right track. Here's how I would say it. Be healthy. Yeah, okay, because what? Your brain is connected to the rest of your body. This is the number one take-home message on this talk tonight, which is you want to keep your memory, then you need to keep the rest of you healthy. It's common sense. It really is. And people think, no, my memory is like a cerebral thing. I need to do puzzles. I need to do crosswords. I need to do Sudokus. I need to use my brain and keep it active like that. Yeah, about 10%. Yeah, the 90% is you need to get up and move. You need to use your body. You need to be active. You need to do all those things that keep you healthy. So let's change the topic. We'll throw all this out. We're going to talk about cardiac health now. We're going to make a long list of things to do to keep your heart healthy. Oh, guess what? We can take that same list, move it over to the memory talk, and it's literally the same. Or we could talk about how to keep your liver healthy, or your big toe healthy, or any other part of you healthy. Turns out to be the same list. That's it. That's really the main point. So as we go through these things, keep that in mind. It's vitality that we're talking about. That's where the memory works best, is with the vitality. So we want to promote acetylcholine. Yeah, the only reason we want to promote acetylcholine is if it's broken. Now, if it's not broken, that is, if your acetylcholine levels are adequate, they can't be fixed. I'll say that again. They can't be fixed because more acetylcholine does not help us. There's a correct amount of acetylcholine. More causes side effects. You can get all kinds of problems. Less, your memory doesn't work. So the only way acetylcholine can do any benefit to us whatsoever is if it's broken. That's how to think about this. So if you're already healthy, this is as good as it gets. Sorry, not necessarily good news. Okay, so blood-brain circulation. That's what got me started on this little tirade here. Blood-brain circulation is a way to get oxygen in your brain, nutrition in your brain, waste product removal in your brain. It's a way to help the neurons recover from their toxic exposures. The list goes on and on and on. All the good things that we want to see are promote brain blood circulation. Well, how do you promote brain blood circulation? You jump around and jiggle and walk and ride and exercise and you move, and the circulation, then the rest of your body going around happens to come up in your brain and give a turn or two. It keeps you healthy. Okay, so there are some details here. Promote myelin sheath. Myelin is that insulation that goes around your neurons, and particularly the long axons are insulated. If the insulation breaks down, then the neurons, they're more susceptible to damage, There's a lot of diseases that relate to this, MS being the key one. The immune system targets the myelin sheath and damages it. So things that keep the myelin sheath healthy will help. Antioxidation in general protects us from the toxins and the long list of stuff that we talked about before. Antioxidation is kind of what people use. It's reduction. For the chemists in the room, we're really talking about reduction. Anti-inflammation. Now, inflammation's got a bad rap. Inflammation, it causes so many problems. You know, heart disease and kidney failure and cancer and all kinds of things. But the fact of the matter is inflammation actually is beneficial. That's why it's there. It's there to promote circulation. It's there to promote healing. It's that balance of inflammation. We don't want too much. We don't want too little. We don't want just the right amount. And in modern society, we tend to run too much. We tend to have too much inflammation in us. And balanced brain blood sugars. Blood sugars are particularly important because blood sugars, if they're too high, they cause this thing called glycosylation. That is, the sugars attach to various molecules in our brain, and they're gunk is what they are. They're sticky, and they just get in the way. Proteins don't work right. And over time, these glycosylated end products tend to accumulate. And they're known as accumulated glycosylation end products. The acronym is very apt on this one. It's AGE. AGE, not our friend. So let's talk about age a little bit. So age, people say, well, Dr. Luper, I'm getting older. You know, I'm 82. You'd expect me to have some problems. Wrong. No. No, if you have a problem, there's a reason for it, and it's not age. Now, admittedly, whatever was happening back in the day has been happening over time. So it's accumulated, and now you got your problem right now. But it's not the time that caused it. It's the problem accumulating over time. What we want to do is we want to roll it back. We want to figure out what was going on back in the past or what we can do about it now. And if we can get things going the other way, time becomes our friend. The more time that passes, the better you're going to feel. That's how we need to think about age. Age becomes our friend if you can figure out the sources of whatever the problem is. Keep that in mind as we're going through these slides. Okay, memory diet. You guys knew this already. This is not rocket science here. Whole food, organic food, lots and lots of vegetables, whole grains. Salmon is particularly good because of the oil, the anti-inflammatory oil. High fiber tends to be good, healthy fats, high antioxidants, and I could talk an hour about this list that I just bounced through here in 10 seconds. So, I don't know how much we want to go into this. A little. Okay, let me boil it down. What the most important thing is. It's too much information because you're not going to remember anything, right? So remember this one thing, and you'll do the most you can do in terms of diet helping your memory. And that is eat at least 5 handfuls of vegetables and fruit a day. That will do more good than anything else. That's the single most important thing. Now, there's a lot of other stuff we can talk about for sure. Handfuls are a handful. An apple is a handful. As much salad as you can grab with your hand, which turns out to be quite a bit. You know, most times I've seen people like bring salads to the table for a family of 4, and it turns out it was just 1 serving, right? So a goodly amount. Now, if you're doing this correctly, you'll have a complaint. That complaint will be, Dr. Luper, all I do is eat. I have to chew and chew and chew. Half my day is taken up by eating. I feel like a cow because I'm going through these mounds of vegetables. You think about 5 handfuls. How do you get 5 handfuls in a day? You're going to have 2 for lunch. 2 handfuls. That's a lot. 2 for dinner, and then have to jam 1 in somewhere else. Breakfast? You're going to have a big handful of broccoli for breakfast? No, you have to figure out, well, maybe you could have an omelet, right? But you have to figure out where to jam in that other handful. And honestly, with 5, I'm cutting you guys short. It should be 6. Really? 6 just sounds crazy. That's crazy talk. Who would ever do 6, right? 5 is hard enough. 3 is hard, right? So that's the take-home message. That'll do more good for you than anything else. It helps with blood sugars. It helps with nutrients. It helps decrease toxicity. It helps decrease the inflammation. The list goes on and on. All the benefits that you get from that. So remember that one. 5 handfuls. Question?
So it's 5 handfuls of vegetables, not fruit.
And fruit. Mostly vegetables. Good question. That was excellent. Mostly vegetables and fruit. Now, fruit's not all one thing. Some fruits are really good for you. Some fruits are not so good for you. If you're a diabetic, there's some fruits you should stay away from. Oranges, which are lovely and wonderful and healthful. The sugar is too concentrated. You take an orange and you eat it and you take a bite and suddenly all the juice is down your throat all at once, right? Now, it's got a lot of fiber in it, but the fiber and the juice are so easily separated that you can get your blood sugars a spike in diabetes. Whereas if you eat blueberries, they'll actually bring your blood sugars down, at least Alaska blueberries. Those big fat Oregon ones, they're too sweet. They're not as good for you as the Alaska ones. The Alaska ones actually truly are better for you. So anyways, again, remember I told you I could spend the hour talking about food. You guys are nudging me into it, so I better back away from it. Okay, memory destruction diet. If you're hell-bent on taking your memory down, this is how you should eat. High sugars, highly processed. Processed means it comes in a box. If it comes in a box and says healthful on it, you could rest assured it's not. So it's basically the fibers taken out of whatever it is. So that's low fiber. High calorie, high trans fat, high protein. Protein's tricky. Gosh, I got till 8 o'clock, right? Yeah. We'll forget the protein. Let's go on to the next one. Oh, you want to know about protein? Okay. Here's the deal with protein. Protein is vital for our health. Vital. Because we are protein. We're made of protein. We're hunks of meat. So you got to have protein. Otherwise, you're not going to be, yourself. But excessive protein will go bad worse than anything else. Here's the rub. If you don't digest it all the way, don't worry. Someone else will. And that someone else lives in your gut. And that someone else is going to take that protein and is going to make nasty things out of it. It's going to extract what little it wants and start dumping microscopic poop that you have to deal with. I love the names of some of these chemicals. Putrescine. You know it's bad, right? cadaverine. Ah! So here's the dealio with protein. What you want to do is you want to eat the right amount. So for us, first of all, let's back it up a bit and say, as we age, we make less digestive enzymes. So we can't digest as much hunks of stuff, particularly protein, as we did when we were younger. So about the maximum size of protein that we could easily handle is about a palm-sized portion. About a palm-sized portion. Now that's a lot of protein. That's a big hunk of protein. You do palm-sized portion 3 times a day, you got a healthy hunk of protein that you're living on. Most people don't actually need that much. You can get by with about half of that. About half a palm-sized portion 3 times a day is adequate for your needs. So if your digestive system is a little on the weak side, keep the protein levels on the low side. In fact, you could take that protein in terms of meat out of your diet altogether. People do it all the time. They're called vegetarians. And they get their protein from plant sources, beans in particular, but a wide variety of plant sources. Now, I was a vegetarian myself for 7 years, and I was never sicker in my entire life than during that 7 years that I was a vegetarian. I am not a good vegetarian. My energy goes down, I gain weight. It is a bad diet for me. But for a lot of people, it's an excellent diet. So the thing is to do is, you guys know all this stuff already, I'm sure. What you do is you eat the protein or whatever the thing is, and then you think, how do I feel? Overall, how do I feel? Do I feel good? Excellent, keep doing that. If you don't feel good, you need to change it. Maybe you need more, maybe you need less. And me and my folks can help figure that out. We can run tests and so on and so forth. But in the end, what you're going to do is you're going to figure it out on your own. You're going to eat stuff and you're going to note how you feel, how your energy goes up, how it goes down. Now, admittedly, there's a lot of stuff that influences energy. It's hard to sort stuff out, but you got the rest of your life to figure it out. So you have plenty of time to do it. Okay, wait. Can't just get rid of artificial sweets. Artificial sweets are notorious for being neurotoxic. Aspartame in particular has a breakdown product that's just horrid for some people. A lot of people can deal with a little bit of poison, they do okay. Other people just fall apart. So artificial sweeteners are particularly bad. Now, there is a point I want to make here though about badness. Now, this is important, so pay attention to this one. It's not healthy to be good all the time. It's not healthy. It's not. Because what happens, you become weak. What we need is from time to time is to eat things that are bad for us, that build character. And I'm not kidding. I'm really telling you the truth. This comes straight out of the research. This is called a hormetic dose response is what it is. Hormesis is the concept. And it turns out that small amounts of poison strengthen us. Now, this was discovered by looking at fruit flies. You know, the fruit flies are doing genetic studies with, and then they poison them, and they cause mutations, and then they have wiggly wings or red eyes or whatever, and they crossbreed them and do all this kind of stuff. But in order to get the mutations, they got to tox out these flies. And one of the best ways to do it is gamma radiation. It turns out to be the most intense toxin on the planet. You get the most toxin for the smallest unit volume of anything, gamma radiation. But they discovered a weird thing happened. If they gamma radiated these flies a lot, they just all died. But if they did it just a little bit, the flies lived long. They were the longest lived flies that they'd ever seen. Now, fruit flies lived 3 days. These ones lived 4. They dropped the research, quit looking at the genetics, and tried to figure out what the heck is happening to these flies. And what was happening was the gamma radiation wasn't enough to kill them outright. It was just enough to get the repair mechanisms to turn on. So not only did the repair mechanisms fix the gamma radiation damage, it fixed every bit of damage that was around. And you have these buff fruit flies. Bring it on, right? They were super flies. So turns out we just need a little gamma radiation to keep us spry. So for gamma radiation is hard to come by. So the toxin I prefer, my preferred toxin is bacon. I eat 1 slice of bacon a week at my Rotary group. So bacon. So keep that in mind. Seriously, I'm serious as a heart attack here. You need a little bit of poison.
I just wanted to ask about whey protein and branched-chain amino acids used by athletes.
Okay, whey protein is protein made from whey. It's an excellent protein unless you're allergic to whey or dairy products. Then it is horrid. Branched-chain amino acids are better yet because branched-chain amino acids are amino acids that have been or they're amino acids that are chained up. They're proteins that have been partially broken down. So they're easy to absorb. They're easy to incorporate into our bodies. They are wonderful and fantastic. They have one tiny little problem. We know when we've come across broken down protein in nature. It's called rot. So branched chain amino acids, if you just smell them and you take them in, they are rotten. That's how our bodies register these things, as rot. So it's, you got to mix it with a lot of stuff to get rid of that rotten flavor. There's this stuff that I like to use to help people's digestive systems, particularly cancer patients. It's called L-glutamine. It's an amino acid that's used preferentially as an energy source by the cells that line the small intestine. But better than glutamine is partially digested whitefish protein, which is branched chain amino acids is what it is. It's a natural source of branched chain amino acids. Except for I had to quit using it because I kept telling people how great it was because the research was great and people who could take it did so well, but folks would open the thing, smell it, and go, oh, I could never take that. This is rotten. And in a way it is. It's broken down. So that's the downside to it. If you can take it, it's excellent for you. Okay. Oh, like we want to, okay, how do we fix a memory? Remember I told you acetylcholine is the key. So we want to block acetylcholine breakdown. Now there's an enzyme, acetylcholine esterase, that naturally breaks down acetylcholine. Now if we block that enzyme, what we're going to have is more acetylcholine hanging around in our brains. So memory is going to improve. So the pharmaceutical companies figured this out and they came up with a bunch of them. Aricept, so on and so on, Cognex, all of these things. And these, okay, what are these used for? Alzheimer's. These are Alzheimer's drugs. And do they work? Yeah, a little, not a lot. A little. They're not the cure for Alzheimer's by any means, but memory does improve when you take them. Remember, if it's not broken, it can't fix. So this assumes that people have a problem with acetylcholine, because if they don't have a problem with acetylcholine, what they're going to get is side effects. They're going to get nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, indigestion, abdominal pain, loss of appetite, weight loss, insomnia, fatigue, muscle cramps, all of these. Nasty side effects. That's the problem with all of these. Nasty side effects. Now, that doesn't mean they're not useful. That doesn't mean that these aren't some of the best things that you can do for people with Alzheimer's. Honestly, in terms of medications, it's the cream of the crop, the best list we have. The good news is you don't always have to use the strong stuff. You can use natural acetylcholine esterase inhibitors. Huperzine A, found in club moss. It's a Huperzia serrata. This is one of the things we use. Now, it doesn't work as good as the pharmaceuticals. I'll tell you right now, it doesn't. It does not work as good. And thank goodness it doesn't, because the side effects are so much less. In fact, it doesn't have side effects in the doses that we use. Next one, caffeine. Huh, go figure. How interesting. Now, caffeine, I always thought made me smarter. When I really needed to just work really hard to memorize stuff, I'd have a cup of coffee. It turns out it's helpful. Rosmarinic acid, found in rosemary. Alpha-pinene, also found in rosemary. What do they say about rosemary? For remembrance. Rosemary for remembrance. It's an herb that you take if you want to remember. Isn't that interesting? A natural way to get acetylcholine levels to go up. I thought that was really cool when I came across that. Yeah, fewer side effects. Okay, next one. Now, we talked about blocking the breakdown of acetylcholine, but we can also just make more. So acetyl L-carnitine is very closely related to acetylcholine and is converted into acetylcholine, so you can actually make more. Now here's the thing about it though. You could eat this stuff by the pound, your body's only going to make a certain amount going over. Once it gets to the correct level, it stops. So you don't get side effects. It's self-regulating. It's brilliant. This is actually the best way to do it. We give it a little nudge with acetylcholine esterase inhibitor, one of the natural ones, and we put people on this stuff, and this works. It actually does. This is one of the best things we can do to get people's memory to go up. Again, assuming that it's broken to begin with, because it ain't broken, it ain't going to get fixed. Okay, so I already said this. Found improved memory in mild to moderate dementia. This is from the research. Sometimes I cite the research at the bottom of the page, sometimes I don't, so you just have to take it as it comes. Helps with energy production. Oh yeah, we got this one here. Acetylcholine and alpha-lipoic acid supplementation of aged beagle dogs improves learning in 2 landmark discrimination tests. And the citing is down below, which just goes to show you that old dogs can, in fact, learn new tricks if you give them the right stuff. Okay, so also alpha-lipoic acid. We mentioned that in the previous study. Alpha-lipoic acid increases acetylcholine levels. Alpha-lipoic acid is interesting. Anybody know about it? People here know about alpha-lipoic acid? No? Some, yeah, okay, we got one in the back. She works for me, there's that. So alpha-lipoic acid is amazing stuff. Not only does it increase acetylcholine, but it protects us against the effects of high blood sugars. I use it much more in the treatment of diabetes. And the reason why is because it helps with neuropathy. It's good for nerves. So if somebody's got neuropathy, I put them on alpha-lipoic acid. No side effects, no problems, 600 milligrams twice a day. Give it some time and it'll start peeling back the neuropathy, that burning in your feet. Recharges other antioxidants. It works particularly good in mitochondria where, anyways, I can go on and on. Keep it simple. Peripheral neuropathy. It chelates toxic metals as well. Another thing to protect you from toxic metals. Good stuff.
So can you just use that, buy that, and use it without worrying about it?
Yeah, they sell it at Fred Meyer. Yeah, yeah. There's, in theory, you can take too much because we do need some oxidation in our body. Our body generates energy via oxidation. So if you took too many antioxidants, in theory, it would make you tired. I've just never seen it. Now, I don't use high levels of it. I'm just so you guys know, as a doctor, I'm a minimalist. I hate pills. I do. I do everything I can to avoid pills. I don't want to put anybody on anything. Now, having said that, I have patients who are taking, 10, 20, 30 pills sometimes because we just got to do what we can, trying to get stuff in to compensate for problems. But I try to keep it to the minimum I can. So I never use high levels of alpha-lipoic acid. I mean, 1,200 milligrams is the most ever. Maybe I use 1,600 once. Okay. Caffeine and memory. Turns out caffeine is interesting. It's not all good news. Results are mixed. Both enhances and inhibits memory. Now, number one is caffeine improves attention. And memory works. One of the mechanisms that the key to memory is attention. We talked about that before. If it's important and you recognize it's important and you can attend to it, the chances of remembering it go up. Yeah, but caffeine's a two-edged sword. Caffeine administered after learning improves memory. It turns out what they did is they sat and they taught people something. They went through the lesson and then they chugged coffee afterwards and their memory went up. So there's an interesting mechanism there. Here's the rub. High doses of caffeine can inhibit memory. Now, back when I was 16, I worked as a dishwasher at Howard's Restaurant in Modesto, California. And there was a coffee shop, and they had a lot of coffee there. So, 16-year-olds, I decided to drink coffee one night. And I managed to get down 25 cups of coffee. And I'll tell you, I wasn't remembering anything. All right, so, and regular high doses of caffeine can decrease Alzheimer's rates. Do you guys, have you heard this one? They found that the more caffeine that people drank, the more protection they got. And they looked at, none, and then 1 cup a day, and then 1 to 3, and then 3 to 5. And basically as high as it went is the protection they got. And they don't know the mechanism. They don't understand why. The chance of getting Alzheimer's goes down if you drink a lot of coffee. Coffee's not necessarily bad. Okay, improving blood-brain flow. Vinpocetine turns out to be an excellent way to do that. Extracted from periwinkle. Over 50 studies demonstrate the improved blood flow. Shown to help with stroke recovery. No effect with normal brain blood flow. So if the brain blood flow is normal, the vinpocetine doesn't do anything. Now I put this here, there's the periwinkle. It's a lovely thing to take, but let's be serious here. There's a way better way to get blood flow to go into the brain. Way better way, and that's exercise. So here's the dealio with exercise. Exercise, in order for it to be effective, needs to be aerobic. What you need to do is get into motion and stay into motion. Ideally, it's going to be 6 days a week. 5 is good. 4 is adequate. 3 is not. Now, I'm not saying there isn't benefit to exercising 3 days a week. There for sure is. But what happens is there's too many days go between the exercise. So that increased blood flow that you get after you're exercising wanes. so that you go through a period of where the blood flow isn't as good. So what you need to do is you need to jiggle yourself enough to get your blood flowing, to be able to keep that flow up. To basically get up on step and keep going on step for the duration. So 6 days a week is better. Now, we have this way to calculate the intensity. It's to maintain your pulse at 70% of your maximum for 30 to 60 minutes. You take 220 minus your age times 0.65 or times 0.7, because it should be, the math is 0.7, to get your target rate. Yada, 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 yada. Forget it. This is a way easier way to do it. What you do is you exercise fast enough to where you can't sing. That's it. If you can sing while you're exercising, you're not going fast enough. Now, if you can't talk, slow it down, because you don't need to go that fast. So it's singing. If you can sing while you exercise, you're not going fast enough. Okay. This is a great study. We do a video every week. At least we used to. We got a little hitch. Our light bulbs broke, so we used to do this video every week, and soon will again, where we do a Health News Minute. And we go through research, and we put it on the web, on Facebook, on YouTube, that kind of thing. So if you guys want more of Dr. Luper and the other folks who work at the clinic, you can just check these videos out. They last about a minute, minute and a half. They're fun, they're informative, and this is from one of them. And what this is they looked at seniors. This average age was 68, and they first of all, they know that memory and balance and cognitive function are better with exercise. That's already been settled. There's no reason to look at that. What they wanted to do instead is see what kind of exercise is the best. So what they did is they did a straightforward aerobic, stretching, weight machine workout, your kind of classic go to the gym workout, compared to dancing. And they found dancing was better. Dancing, it was not better in every way, but it was better in certain key ways. The hippocampal volume. They're measuring the number of cells as a unit, as a whole, and the hippocampus went up with dancing more than it did with regular exercise. Any idea why? Oh, I think it says why. Yeah, here's the thing it's lots of things. It's because there's rhythm and music. Music is special. Music does more to help your memory. Isn't that interesting? Than anything. Alzheimer's folks who can't remember the names of their wives can pick up a tune from when they were teenagers, right? And follow it. So there's that. Also, there's the newness of it, because when you dance, you have to stay in rhythm, and you also have to do the new thing, whatever it is, right? And you have to learn. So there's that. Also, it's social. You have to be charming. Well, to some extent. And all those things come together in a magical whole of helping you more than anything else that they've found. Turns out dance is the best to help with coordination, with memory, with cognition. Now remember, we talked about this earlier. We talked about how human beings, for the vast majority of our history, have been outside, have been in nature, have been living in a space. That's what happens with dance. You're integrating in that space. This dance is all about space. It's using your space well and doing it in a social way. Okay, sleep and memory. Now, we got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to bang through these last slides, and it's fine because it's all common sense. I've got the point across already, which is it's health that brings memory. So, can you be healthy without sleeping? No, of course not. So the thing is, they've studied it. They've studied it a bunch. I looked at scores of studies. In the end, I decided I'm going to write sleep improves memory on this slide. It summarizes the essence of it. REM sleep and non-REM sleep are both important to memory consolidation. Basically, the things that happen in your day get consolidated. And the way they did the research on these ones is they would do a task, and then some people they'd let sleep, and other people they'd keep them up. So it was hard to get volunteers for this research, by the way. Sleep protects new memories. Sleep consolidates memories according to their relative importance. And they've researched each and every one of these things and another 50 things besides. One last thing here. Does anybody recognize what she's sleeping on? Memory foam. I do have a sense of humor here. Okay, myelin health. We talked about that earlier. How do we get myelin health to be healthy? Yeah, everything else we said, and fish oil. Fish oil is wonderful stuff. Pretty much every patient I see, I put them on fish oil because it helps in so many ways. Essential fatty acid required in myelin production is in fish oil, DHA. Improves memory, and this is out of the research again. Maintains healthy cell membranes, shown to decrease depression. Now, this is not a depression talk, but we throw in a little depression thing here. And also in treating attention deficit disorder, hyperactivity, and high in wild salmon. So we were fortunate to live in Alaska that way. Okay, more myelin health improvement. B12 is particularly good. B12 is one of the more common causes of reversible dementia. A lot of times folks who get older, they start getting dementia, think, well, they're getting older, right? Runs in our family. Wrong. No, turns out there's a lot of times there's stuff you can do. Actually, another common cause of senile dementia is dehydration. I've cured patients by having them drink more water. It's not hard to figure. You run a blood test and they're dehydrated. You can just tell. Okay, so B12 is helpful. Some people don't absorb it. So even if you're taking it, doesn't mean you're actually getting it. You need to do a blood test to be able to tell whether you're getting it or not. Okay, vitamin D. We can't do a talk in Fairbanks without talking about vitamin D. And turns out it's super important for avoiding memory problems, in particular Alzheimer's disease. The research is good on this one. Now, here's what it's not good at. It's good at saying if you have low vitamin D, your chances of getting Alzheimer's goes up. What it doesn't say, and this is important, is that if you do have Alzheimer's and you take vitamin D, you can treat it. It doesn't seem to correlate. Good for avoiding it, not good for treating it. So low levels are associated with short-term memory loss, also with less ability to organize thoughts, prioritize tasks, make decisions, those kinds of things. So your brain gets addled when you don't have enough vitamin D. Vitamin D, by the way, is not a vitamin, just so you all realize that. It's not a vitamin. It's a historical accident that we call it a vitamin. It is, in fact, by definition, not a vitamin. What is? It's a hormone. It's a hormone that we happen to make when sun shines on our skin. Now, unfortunately, here in Fairbanks, that sunshine on our skin doesn't do much. In fact, it does nothing, literally nothing. It's impossible to make vitamin D from September until May in Fairbanks. Back in the olden days, I could look people up and down in the springtime. They were just tired. And I just knew somehow they needed to get out of town. So I would write them a prescription to go to Hawaii or Mexico, and they would laugh, and they would take it home to their honey, Dr. Luper says I got to go to Hawaii. And they'd come back, and they'd be better. I don't know why. But I didn't know about testing for vitamin D. I could just tell. Well, now I test for vitamin D. I'm sorry, now the treatment is I give them a little bottle of drops. No more Hawaii. You still go Hawaii, but you get that vitality back again. Because you make vitamin D in the summertime if you're running around outside naked for long periods of time, basically. That's what it takes. I'm sorry, it's the truth. And then what little vitamin D you make, then you just deplete as the year goes on. In the springtime, when the sun starts coming back, your mood plummets. And that's classic. It's a kind of classic old-timey Fairbankson thing. So vitamin D is really the way to cure that. About what?
How did sunscreens and all that?
Oh yeah, they'll block vitamin D. So you put a sunscreen on, you're not making any vitamin D. No, here's the thing with vitamin D. You need to get your blood levels checked. The average blood level here in Fairbanks, we know because we've done a zillion of them, turns to run in the mid-20s, around 24. Now the range runs from 30 to 100. Ideally, you should be running 60, 70, around there. That's where people are the healthiest. Cancer levels plummet, illnesses plummet, and then there's like getting the flu plummets when your vitamin D levels are adequate. The problem is it's not easy to get your vitamin D levels up that high. You end up having to take 6,000 IUs a day. 6? Are you crazy? Yeah, 6, 8 maybe, 15 maybe. What, anything over 10,000 is toxic? Wrong. Nope. Some people have to take 25 just to get to 40. No, it's not one thing, one size fits all. You have to check your blood levels. You have to take it and check your blood levels and see where you're at. If you're low, take more. Eventually you'll get it up. It's cheap. That's a dime a day. That's if you're taking a heavy-duty dose. It costs you a dime. Otherwise, it's a nickel. Okay, so people who have low levels have cognitive decline 2.5 times faster. Okay, hormones and memory. I realize we're at the end of this thing. Yes, they are important for memory. Estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, pregnenolone, thyroxine have all been found to improve memory. Next slide. Practice and memory. Yeah, turns out it works if you practice, literally practice. Association. So let me tell you a little story, and I'm running out of time, but nobody's leaving. It looks like we're okay. The police haven't come to shut us down. So let me tell you a story. So when I was in medical school, I waited tables to make money for my family. I had 3 kids and a lovely wife, and I had to make money. So I was in school during the morning. I was seeing patients during the afternoon from noon until 5. And then I'd go down to the local restaurant and I'd wait tables. And I'd walk into the restaurant, and this restaurant I worked at had between 7 and 9 specials every day. 7 and 9 items that were not on the menu. And I'd look at the list and I'd go, okay, good. And I'd walk out. And all my coworkers thought, well, Scott has a photographic memory. Nope, not even close. No, what I did is I didn't try to remember 9 things. Remember, we only have 7 slots, right? Ish. As if you're clever, you have 7. No, I didn't remember 9 things. What I remembered was we have 3 kinds of chicken, 2 salads, and 2 desserts. Who can't remember that? Now, in the chicken category, we have the barbecue chicken, we have the tequila chicken, and we have the Asian chicken, right? No, I just organized them. That was easy. I just organized it, broke it down and organized it so that I could hold it in my head. I created a little system like that. That's how you do it. Now, again, this is common sense. You guys all know this already. But don't sell yourself short. If you find yourself struggling with your memory, then it's not you're a failure as a human being and you're getting old and now you're demented, though it may be that you are getting demented and you have things to fix. There's that, okay? But a lot of times what it is, it's just a matter of slowing down and getting organized. Now, in fact, let me just jump to the thing here. I'm making it like everybody can work with what you got and your memories are fine. Let's be frank. Some people, memories are falling apart. Their brains are being damaged. There's stuff going on. They have inflammation. They have diabetes and so on and so forth. In those situations where your poor memory is impacting your life, that you're not able to live well, you need to see me and mine, or people like me. You need to go to a doctor and get your problem looked at. You need to have tests run. Basically, it boils down to this. If it's not working, there's something broken. So you need to search till you find the broken thing. Otherwise, you can't fix it. So you have to go see somebody who's clever enough to run the right test to find things are broken. When it's broken, instead of going, oh, it's broken, I have this horrible thing. No, you go, yay, I got something to fix. That's how you think about it. Yay, I have something to fix. By the way, learning foreign languages is an excellent way to build your memory. That's for you, Cheryl. Oh yeah, and movement strengthens memory, but y'all know that already. Okay, reversing brain damage in former NFL football players. They looked at 30 of these guys and they did a bunch of stuff, weight loss, fish oil, vitamins, and they did this formula that had acetylcholine, we learned about that, huperzine A, we learned about that, alpha-lipoic acid and N-acetylcysteine, well, we learned about one of those. And they ran it for 6 months and they got better. And they know because they did testing to see how their cognitive functioning was. And they also did brain imaging and they found that their blood flowed better in their brain and they did better in memory, attention, reasoning, This is the core of a program we do. This is where it came from, was this research right here. This is what, in fact, what we do. This and more. It's not one size fits all by any means, but these are the things that we put people on. We also do acupuncture. We also do a neurological assessment. Dr. Costello, both of them, there's 2 brothers, do this for us. They're excellent at it. Okay, so there's lots of things that you could take. We talk about this: fish oil, CoQ10, vitamin C, anthocyanins, those are blueberries, that's where the picture is. B complex, vitamin D. There's a bunch of other stuff you can do: alpha-lipoic acid, acetyl-L-carnitine, vinpocetine. We've actually talked about nearly all of these things. Vitamin E is a new one. Okay, bottom line, last slide. Here's what you do: memory enhancement. Number 1, pay attention. If you want to know where your car keys are, pay attention. Okay. Number 2, draw a picture of what you want to remember. Because now you have another way to access that information. We are spatial. If you draw a picture, then you can remember it. Don't take my word for it. Try it. If something's important, draw a picture of it, and you'll find you can remember it. Of course, it takes the time. You got to really want it, right? Practice. Yeah, just take that thing and practice. So when I meet somebody, I can't remember anybody's name. Seriously, I have a problem. This is the thing about names. I meet somebody, I say, what's your name? I meet them, and then I do something else, and then I come back and say, your name was, your name was, your name. It's a thing I always have to do, and I have no pride about it anymore. And those of you who I know, half the time I can't remember your names, and I'll just ask again. Seriously, I just lose my pride. I just practice, practice, practice. Sleep well. Eat well. Exercise well. And socialize. This is the list. This is what really makes a difference. You want to know how to get your memory working better? This is the list. This is what works. Now, if there's something broken, yay. Remember, we're happy. We'll fix it. But for all of us who are basically healthy, this is it. This is how to do it. And that's the last slide. So let's take some questions.
While you're answering questions, can you slowly do the last 3 slides so we write stuff down? Just leave them on.
You know, wait. There's a way to get all these. They're going to have them available.
Yeah, it's not.
Okay, so I'll leave this one up. And if you all have to leave right now, that's fine. I'm not offended. You can go on out the door, and I'll stay and take questions. Question?
Can you overdose on vitamin D?
Yes, you can. It's hard. Now, if you overdose on vitamin D, what happens is you get a stomach ache. What happens is vitamin D is important for the absorption of calcium. With high levels of vitamin D, your calcium absorption goes up, your blood levels of calcium go up, and you start getting muscle cramps. Usually it starts off in your digestive system. Now, the normal range of vitamin D runs between 30 and 100. For pretty much everybody in Fairbanks, unless you're taking vitamin D, you're running in the 20s or teens or even in the single digits. The record right now in my practice is 7. That's the lowest I ever saw. So to get your levels up in the normal range, typically you have to be doing pretty high level doses. Now, I have had a few patients be up in like 125 range, but it's not a problem because you don't actually start getting symptoms until you get to 250. And I've literally never seen that. So in theory, you can do too much vitamin D. In fact, it's hard. Now, the thing about vitamin D is interesting. Vitamin D is a natural and powerful immune modulator. And people with autoimmune disease can take high levels of vitamin D and knock their condition down. I first learned this with psoriasis. And the funny thing is, we were using 2,000 IUs of vitamin D to treat it. And I laugh now because I always thought, oh, we're on the edge of toxing people out. Turns out it was tiny little amounts, really. But the original research done on that, they were using 300,000 IUs of vitamin D a day, and they were having remarkable improvements. But a few people got sick, and much was made about people overdosing on vitamins, and so it got a bad rap, and that bad rap rings through medicine to this day. With the things I'm telling you about how to take 10,000, that's highly controversial. Most doctors would not touch that with a 10-foot pole. The levels are way too high. But again, remember, if you check your blood levels and you're below 100, you're perfectly safe. If you're below 250, you're not having problems. You just need to bring it down.
And is there one kind of vitamin D that comes in capsules?
Cheryl, that's an excellent question. There are several kinds of vitamin D. Vitamin D2 comes from fungus. And that is the more traditionally used MD type of vitamin D. I don't know why. It's weird. Seriously, I don't know why. There's no logic to it. Vitamin D3 is the kind of vitamin D that we make and we use. It's much safer, much less toxic. So that's the kind that I recommend that you take is vitamin D3. Also, the drop form is superior to the capsule form because the absorption is better. It's not just a little bit better, it's a lot better. It's about 40% better. Now, admittedly, in a capsule, you take 5,000 in a capsule, you're still getting lots of vitamin D, so you cannot get 40% of it and still get your levels up pretty good. But I just like to get the biggest bang for my buck, so I'll go for the drops. That's what I recommend.
On the list of drugs that you had available were toxic. You didn't have Benadryl. Do you know anything about Benadryl?
I don't, actually. So it well may be. Honestly, my impression when I looked at that list was shock and horror, because I have so many patients that are taking those things. And even, I told you, even for me, there was a few things on that list. But what gave me comfort was the fact that I do things, I eat well, I sleep well, I exercise well, to compensate for the negative effects. Remember, I also think that we need a little negativity in us to build us up. And I'm not just giving you lip service. It's not just a funny joke. It's actually a fact. It really is. It's important for our health to do things to challenge our system from time to time. That's what exercise is. Exercise is poison. You go out, you tear your muscles up, you challenge your body, you work your heart, your chemistry goes all cattywampus, right? And then you drag yourself home and you recover from the inside. You come back stronger and better. We're doing it every day. We're exercising. Literally, that's what it is. And if you're not pushing yourself hard enough to tear yourself down a little, then you're not getting the benefit of the exercise. You're just going through the motions and not really getting the what we're trying to get out of it. Question?
What's the least damaging artificial sweetener?
I don't know. Yeah, I'll tell you what my opinion is, but I haven't seen enough research to convince me. Stevia. Honestly, what I'd rather do is just eat sugar. That's what I do. I don't do artificial sweeteners. I'll do sugar. Artificial sweeteners really are bad news. And here's the rub on it. The reason why people do artificial sweeteners is so that they can get the sweet but not get the calories. So you think, well, now that's good for my diabetes. Wrong. Now, for reasons we don't understand, people who do artificial sweeteners get diabetes at the same rate as people who do sugar. Their chances of gaining weight, their chances of having blood sugar problems, their chances of having all the negative things that go with sugar are still there with artificial sugar. I don't know why. No one understands what this is. There's all kinds of theories and how people's sugar flavor kicks in, and you don't get the sugar in your soda, but you find it elsewhere. It's probably where it's coming from. People just get sensitized to that flavor, and they'll find it somewhere or other. Is probably where it's coming from. The thing to do about sugar is, oh brother, now I'm on a soapbox. The thing to do about sugar, I'll just do it. The thing about sugar is to break the addiction, because as human beings, we are designed from the inside to seek sweet and to seek richness. And if we were cavemen, the highest quality foods we could find would be sweet. The very best fruits with the most nutrients at the peak of their ripeness would be the best things that we could find. So if we're living outside, living on nuts and berries and twigs and leaves, those instincts serve us well. But in today's society, they do not. They've been co-opted, and the companies have been able to figure out the flavors we like, concentrate them up, and eliminate everything else because it's cheap and they can make money on it and they can sell more of it, and they're going against our own interests. So the thing to do is eat real food and break the cycle of addiction. Don't try to find alternatives that are sweet. Just give up the sweet. Now, having said that, I like candy. And I eat these, because me and my little 2-year-old eat these chocolate balls, these Lindt chocolate balls, dark chocolate balls. Don't think they're healthy. They're dark chocolate, but they're full of ganache. They're not healthy at all. But it's another, I said bacon. I also forgot to mention the Lindt chocolate balls. And Patrick is so cute because after dinner, he wants his chalky ball. Chalky ball, Daddy? Chalky ball? So it was like a couple weeks ago, he comes in the morning, jumps into bed with me, and I go, "Good morning, Patrick. How you doing? Chalky ball?" So, yeah, that's human nature in its natural state. Chalky ball, that's what we're looking for. Chalky ball. Okay, question.
Are there other vitamins or some of these things that you should have blood work done on? Because some other doctors or whatever said, oh, well, we know in Fairbanks we need more vitamin D, so you don't even need to do that test. And from what you're saying, that is important to do that.
Yeah, it is. It is important to do that. Now, if we were all the same, it wouldn't be, because I would just put everybody on 4,237 units, right? Because we know that's the ideal, but it does not work that way. Some people, you put a little bit and their levels come up ever so nicely. Other people are resistant to it. And this is, not only does it come out of my experience, this is also what the research is telling us. They did research on Hawaiian surfers, of all people, and found out that a goodly portion of them were deficient in vitamin D. How is that possible? Does it make sense? It seems incredible, and yet that was the fact. That's actually what it is. They're deficient. People have different vitamin D metabolisms. Now the speculation on that one is not only does sun make vitamin D, it breaks it down. So if you're out getting a lot of sun, what this vitamin D in your skin is actually being broken down by the sunlight. And that's a fact. I mean, that's not controversial at all. That is exactly what happens. Now the thought is, as you break it down, you're also making it, so there's a balance point that comes up. Well, that balance point is different for different people, different for different skin types, different for different skin colors. A lot of things go into whether you make vitamin D or break vitamin D down. Question?
As far as exercise is concerned, and with, just health, overall health is concerned, whenever you're exercising, like vegetables or something like that, that's supplemented,
A little vague on the question. So the question is,
would they supplement for exercise, is what I'm saying?
so the question is, if you're exercising, is there something that you can eat that will help you get more out of your exercise? The answer is yes. Absolutely. Exercise is hard on your body. It's hard on your joints. It's hard on your muscles. That's what it's designed to do. It's designed to tear you down so that you get built up again. So what you do need is you need nutrients to be able to build things up.
Like if you're wondering for 3 days a week or something like that, it would, like a vegetable diet be sufficient?
No. It could be. It's a good question. It's a question is like, really the bottom line of this question is, how do I be healthy? That's really the fundamental. There's so many details. I just give you these zillion slides with zillion bits of information. There's no way you're going to remember all this stuff going out the door and you'll be like, I don't know, how do I be healthy? And the answer is really boils down to it varies from person to person. And I addressed it earlier when I said, notice how you feel. Do stuff, then adjust, right? Notice how you feel. Now, it's hard to do on your own, but people have been doing it for a long time. They've been limping along, more or less. So if you want to do better at it, what you need to do is work with somebody who's an expert. Now, okay, this is not common. This is not rocket science here. If you want to go through and go to court, you need to find somebody who's been to court before to walk you through it. That's called a lawyer, right? If you want to find somebody if you want to plant a lawn, you want to find somebody who's planted a lawn before so they know what kind of things to do, how to prepare the soil, what kind of seed to plant, You want to get somebody who's done it before. So you go out and find help. That's professionals is what you do. So in this case, go find someone like me. Sit down and talk with me, and then I'll just simply ask you a bunch of questions. So that when you first come to see me, this is going to sound crazy, but I actually visit with my patients for an hour. And it's not like we just sit and chat about the weather. I'm going at it hammer and tongs, just doing everything I can to get as much information out of people as possible so I could sort out what's going on with folks. And honestly, I rarely get done doing my intake in an hour. All I get to at the end of the hour is I get a sense of what tests I'm going to run. So I can figure out what's going on. Then after I do that, I have you come back in a week and we go over the test results and ask you a whole bunch more questions. Because that's what it takes to figure stuff out. If it were simply a matter of finding someone's diagnosis, it would take me 5 minutes. I'm good at it. I can ask questions. I can figure out diagnosis like no problemo. But who cares what your diagnosis is? That's only the tip of the iceberg. I want to know the reason why you got sick. Okay, yeah, you have diabetes, or you have cluster headaches, or you have hepatitis, whatever. I could see you sitting there in the chair whether you have those things, nearly. Like people, they have tells, like people with hypothyroidism, they have a look to them. They have the way their face is, their eyebrows. And you ask a few questions in 5 minutes, you can figure out whether somebody's got hypothyroidism pretty easily. And you run a test to confirm it. Again, who cares? I mean, the point is not whether you have hypothyroidism. That just takes a few minutes. The question is, why did you get sick? What happened? Why is your metabolism? What's going on with your thyroid? So often, it turns out there's a reason. If you look, you can find it. Some people in here right now I know have Hashimoto's. It's a cause of low thyroid, and they probably aren't even doing anything to treat it. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease where your body makes antibodies that kill off your thyroid, and most doctors don't treat it. They say there is no treatment for it. There is actually. There's all kinds of stuff you could do for it. But it takes time. So the problem with this system, now I'm back on my soapbox. The problem with this system is if you want to make money, you want to turn and burn and see a new patient every 5 minutes. And that's what the system reinforces. That's where we go wrong with medicine nowadays. Some of my best friends are doctors. God bless them. They're doing the best job they can. But with the reimbursement rates as low as they are, they can't hardly make a living unless they're turning and burning, and that's what they do. It's called standard of care. I am lucky enough to be a naturopathic doctor because I take time. Now, it's not cheap to come see me by any means, but I make sure that my world includes enough time for me to figure things out. That's why I'm good at figuring these things out. Not that I'm smarter than any other doctor. I'm probably your average dolt when it comes to doctors, but I let myself take the time to figure stuff out, and I puzzle things, and I made a career of it, figuring stuff out when nobody else can. Okay, more questions.
You did the next slide. Next slide.
More questions.
I recall in the beginning of your talk, you had mentioned you asked how many are your acetylcholine
Yes.
levels. Is that, I don't recall that being a typical.
It's not by any
Is
means.
that something you have to request, or do they really want to pay you for it? Or?
It's an obscure, odd test to do, but you can get your acetylcholine levels checked. Yeah, you can. The problem with acetylcholine, though, it's in your body, and it's also in your brain, and it doesn't transfer the blood-brain barrier, so it's hard to tell exactly what's going on in your brain. So often with brain chemistry, it's difficult because you do a blood test and it doesn't really correlate that well with what's going on in someone's brain. So honestly, in this situation, the best thing to do is base it on someone's symptoms. Now, you can run acetylcholine levels, you can run other levels as well, but it turns out that the other chemicals, regular chemistry, blood sugars, cortisol levels, thyroid levels, those are things that really, vitamin B12 levels, those are the things that make a greater impact on it than the acetylcholine levels. Question?
Ginkgo. It was just thrown up there.
Ginkgo is an excellent thing to improve circulation. It's one of the better micro-circulation, that is the tiny little blood vessels that get them opened up and better blood flow. That's the reason why Ginkgo works as well as it does. That's the reason why the research shows that it works, is because it's helping with circulation. But that's assuming that circulation is poor. If it isn't poor, it does nothing. It's like vinpocetine. It's kind of like not quite as good as vinpocetine, but still good. So oftentimes they're combined. And they were in the research that I showed you with the football players. Other questions?
I got a question. Should you vary your amounts of vitamin D throughout the year? Should you take less in the summer or more?
Yes, actually, I like that question. That's a good question. I don't know. Oh, the question is, should you vary your vitamin D levels throughout the year? Less in the summer, more in the winter? In theory, you should. Most of the time what I do is I have people just keep taking it. But I have to say for myself, I vary it. So if I've been out in the sun a lot, not that I'm logical, I think I get lazy is what I get. So I just don't like taking anything personally. I try to take the least amount of stuff myself. I chug fish oil, I take vitamin D, I take some zinc sometimes. That's about it. I don't like to take anything if I could help it. I eat food. Okay, so we're good for one more question, right?
Well, you didn't mention anything about alcohol and the effect on the brain.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I did actually, was on the list of toxins. It turns out to be a neurotoxin, and high levels of alcohol kill neurons and will knock your memory out eventually.
What about, like they say, a glass of wine or two a day?
It's good for you. Small amounts of alcohol actually are beneficial. You'll live better and longer with small amount of alcohol. Now, it's not a straightforward thing, because if you look at individual conditions, some people, like with diabetes, they're particularly sensitive to the effects of alcohol. They don't do well with alcohol. Diabetics don't, so it doesn't apply to them. Women with breast cancer, any amount of alcohol increases their chance of breast cancer coming back. Any amount. So, but if you look at populations of hundreds and thousands of people, and you look at what you do with a population to get that population to live as long as possible, that population as a whole, there's individual exceptions, I'm saying, but a population as a whole does better with moderate amounts of alcohol. About a glass of wine a day turns out to be the best. I tried this back in the 90s. I tried drinking a glass of wine a day. I couldn't do it because I was like stoned every day. I was like wasted every day. I was like, who could live like this? Not me. I didn't have it in me. But I do like alcohol. I do like it particularly when it's a social situation because it lubricates things. People get a little more relaxed. They talk better. So we got a picnic or people come over for barbecue or there's this kind of music thing we're doing or whatever, stuff like that. alcohol comes out and it's better. People just get along better. So I think not only is it chemically better for us, but it's socially better for us. It helps us be more relaxed in our own skin, visit with each other, and make memories. There we go. That's where I want to quit, right there. That's